Good morning, guys. Everything new under the sun was a whole bunch of articles coming out of Israel, a whole bunch of news, a whole bunch of things going on. The latest is a special ops strike inside Gaza to take out a high-ranking official in the Palestinian Authority. This article is from, where is this from? Debka.com, and this is a result of an IDF lieutenant colonel killed, second officer in special ops action in Gaza. Special operations troops were extricated under air cover after a Hamas ambush east of Khan Sunday night. Hamas reported 7 dead, including a senior commander. The IDF force was discovered by Hamas while conducting a counter-terror operation and surrounded under heavy fire. An IDF lieutenant colonel and officer were killed. Israeli Air Force sent in and bombed the sources of the enemy fire to get the men out and across the border to Israel. The massive aerial bombardment was massive enough to be heard at a far distance. On Monday, IDF spokesman issued a following communique. In the course of an operation by the IDF special unit, an exchange of fire developed during which an Israeli officer was killed. And so what is this coming from? Well, this is coming from a special operations strike. This is again Debka.com. 6 Hamas terrorists killed in firefight with IDF commando. Israel casualties. IDF force withdraw under air cover. So they were going in basically to take out a high-ranking officer in Gaza. So here's another article here. This is about Russia. Special forces landing in South Syria. U.S. Raptors deter Syrian, Iranian, and Russian combat aircraft. So we have evidence here of U.S. technology, U.S. military in there, which is now apparently deterring Russian and Syrian forces and Iranian forces from doing stuff against Israel. What's this about? Well, unfolding Russia, U.S. and Israeli military steps are raising the big power stakes in Syria on the eve of a Trump-Putin summit, Debka's military sources report. Russian special forces have arrived and been attached to the Syrian military command in southern Al-Safa region, east of the Druze town of Swida. Officially as advisors to the Syrian offensive against ISIS, the markers of Islamist targets for Russian airstrikes. Russia pulled out those units in June after helping Bashar Assad's army capture rebel-held territory on Israel's Golan and Jordan's border. Now the Russians are attached to the Syrian army's elite 42nd Brigade Gieth forces of the 4th Division. The insertion of Russian units into this flashpoint border area stokes military tensions, which are already rising in anticipation of the resumption of Israeli air operations over Syria after a 6-week pause. So apparently the news is that Israel is going to resume the air operations, and this is going to be very fascinating to see what comes of this. I guess they're maybe waiting for the discussion with Putin and Trump. This became more likely after Trump's special envoy for Syria, James Jeffrey, said Russia has been permissive in consultations with the Israelis about Israeli airstrikes against Iranian targets inside Syria. We certainly hope that the permissive approach will continue after the deployment of the S300, the Russian S300 defense systems in Syria. Now here's the information about the F22. The Pentagon disclosed that the U.S. Air Force F22 Raptors have been recently completed their first combat surge in operations over Syria, and in doing so deterred 587 enemy Syrian, Iranian, and Russian combat aircraft in the crowded skies there. So now apparently you have the U.S. directly involved. The F-22s flew deep into Syrian territory, interestingly. This is obviously evading Russian S-300. Russia must be upset with this. And that's what the Pentagon communique said, facing both enemy fighters and surface-to-air missile systems. This means that indeed the U.S. does have technology to get past the S-300. Whether or not Israel has their own technology that can get past it, or Israel's going to use the American technology, I don't know. But this is interesting, and this is certainly an escalation of events, and this is going to be embarrassing for Russia. The U.S. overflights took place in the face of Russian S300 S systems emplaced in Syria. It was the first time that the U.S. Defense Department had described the mission of U.S. stealth aircraft in Syria as deterrence against combined Syrian, Russian, Iranian forces. Until now, it was defined as counter-terror operations against ISIS. This is fascinating news. While the F-22 combat surge over Syria was said to have been maximized over a 3-day period, no date was offered. In light of Pentagon's disclosure, James Jeffries' appeals to Moscow to remain permissive in the face of Israeli airstrikes takes on an aspect of warning that the U.S. Raptors will henceforth cover Israelis' Air Force operations. Now you look at the F-22, and you know that Israel has the F-35, which is also a stealth aircraft. So this means that Israel definitely has U.S. technology, if they don't already have technology of their own, to get around the surface-to-air systems. Debka says, this week Russia boosted its eastern Mediterranean fleet opposite the Syrian coast on Thursday. On Thursday, the Russian Black Sea Fleet Admiral Makarov frigate with long-range Caliber cruise missiles and Admiral Grigorovich passed through the Bosporus Sea. They are to join the Admiral Essen and Pitlevi frigates, the landing ship Nikolaev Flinchenkov, and the Vishny Volochysk missile corvette, which were already in place. And this is a gathering of the world's armies to the Middle East, to Israel. The Syrian scene is clearly heating up, and all parties are maneuvering for advantageous positions just 2 days before Trump and Putin are scheduled to meet in Paris on the sidelines of the events marking the World War I armistice centenary. So a huge news of a buildup of all nations, effectively all significant nations in the world, a buildup, and more will come. And now news that U.S. is able to do overflights in Syria, and now we know that Israel will also have the same technology. It'll either be shared, or Israel probably has its own technology too. So pretty significant stuff, and this is big news. This is big escalation. I think what this means is that Israel's going to is going to resume overflights, and with all this buildup, I don't see this buildup decreasing anytime soon. They're not all going to go back to their home ports and have a rest over the matter. I think this is going to build up to an offensive, and this is what's happening. The problem is the U.S. is involved. Why is that a problem? Well, if end-time Bible prophecy is to be filled sooner than we think, that means the U.S. has to be taken out of the picture somehow, or is not involved, or is not supporting Israel at that time, and likely that's because they've been taken out as a world superpower and are no longer willing or able to defend Israel in the last days. So something takes them out. But that's interesting stuff. And I want to bring these stories to you. So incredible provocations and convergence of events happening in the Middle East, in Israel, as it pertains to Syria and Russia. So we have some big dates coming up, big events. And so what will come out of it, I don't know exactly, but pretty fascinating stuff. I'll do this one as well as an add-on. And this is the incredible Israeli technology. So this is Jews are some of the smartest people in the world, and they've apparently created a 3D bioprinted lung, and it's going to be available for global transplants. I read another article that they had a vaccine now for 80 or 90% of cancers. I'm thinking, what? Is this fake news or what? I mean, but if it's going to come out of any country, out of Israel, makes a lot of sense. They have incredible technology. They're incredibly intelligent. But here's one. Israel's coal plant inks licensing and commercialization deal with major American biotech firm to make human organs. So they're going to 3D print human organs. Incredible stuff that they can 3D print human organs, and apparently this is working. Coal plant, an Israeli regenerative medicine company focused on 3D bioprinting of tissues and organs, signed license, development, and commercialization agreements with United Therapeutics Corporation of Maryland for 3D bioprinted lung implants, or transplants rather. So incredible technology in the last days. You wonder how the beast, who will have a mortal wound and is brought back to life, you wonder how that's going to happen. And it could be things like 3D bioprinted organs, and we have the technology now. You don't have to have a hologram or something of the beast. Now you have this stuff which will bring this figure back to life with these incredible 3D printed transplants. I just shake my head and say, wow, the technology is absolutely incredible in these last days, and you can see how a mortal wound will be healed simply by 3D printing stuff for the human body. Guys, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Please share the video. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and we'll see you guys in the next video.